Welcome everyone to our Delivering Feedback course. This is our second session out of 3. We'll have another one later today. So if you know someone who wants to attend that missed the early session and is not here today, please let them know we have another session later that they can attend as well. I am Jacie and I'm on the Learning and Development team, and I'll be taking you all through the content today. We'll also have at least one people business partner on each call. For this one, we'll have Jessica Mitchell to help answer any questions during the Q&A portion of this call. So that's who you will have today. As far as learning objectives, we will talk about difficulties of delivering feedback, a foundation for delivering feedback, and then modeling a culture of feedback through day-to-day engagement with your team. So we will cover that. Also, just so you know, for how the call will be laid out, we'll have some content, then we'll go into breakout groups, we'll come back and debrief and have a Q&A after that. So there will be some interaction, so just be aware of that. That will be coming. And also we want to recognize that we know it's been just kind of a rough couple of months across many different aspects. So with this 360 review cycle, we just want to make sure everyone is being extra kind with their feedback, because it's just been, everyone's learning how to work a little bit differently. I know we all have been working remotely, but maybe you're now working remotely with kids or a significant other at home. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this 360 review cycle. So to get started, we will use Menti. We used it in the receiving feedback session, so a couple months ago, but if you could pull up menti.com and then enter this code 798412. I also have a direct link I'll put in the chat that you can, it should take you directly to it as well. So you can see if that works. But the next slide is the first question in Menti, so you want to get it pulled up now. Don't wait. And we will go to that. So the first question in Menti is, how do you feel about delivering feedback? Are you super excited to do it? Are you like, meh, I don't love doing it, but I will? Or are you not interested in doing it? Or not necessarily not interested, but you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So then you end up waiting and maybe not doing it.
The live thing is like a race. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's fun when everyone's voting. Awesome. So it seems like, I'm not sure exactly how many people have submitted their votes, but it seems like it's mostly glad to do it or meh, it's fine, which is really exciting because it was similar in the earlier group today. Because we have this chart from HBR and it just shows like how much people want to give feedback and how much they want to receive it. Excuse me. And on this chart, it shows that people are okay giving positive feedback, and then they don't really want to give constructive feedback. But it seems like all of you they did not survey you all for this because you all seem either happy to do it or you're like, it's okay. So, but also just want to highlight what receivers want to have. So obviously people want to receive positive feedback. It's always great to know when you're doing a good job, but people really want to receive constructive feedback because they want to know how to improve, how to get to the next level, what they can do to be better. So just so you can see a visual of what people want to receive as far as feedback goes. And then we have a slide that has importance of feedback. All of this is outlined on our guidance on feedback page. So if you need to go back and reference it, you can. I'm not going to read all these to you one by one because I think you can probably read it yourself. And I have an example that will help you see what, like how important feedback is. So the example is you're working with someone, whether that's someone that reports directly to you or is a peer of yours. You're working together on a project and this person you're working with needs some feedback, whether it's positive feedback or constructive feedback, it doesn't matter. They just need some feedback so that they have some direction. you're scared to give them feedback. You don't want to hurt their feelings or anything like that, so you hold back. And this person, what it's like for them is like getting in a car to go on a road trip, and you get in your car, you don't have a map, a GPS, a phone, you don't even have a compass, you don't know which way is north or south. Um, and you're like, this is going to be really hard, but you go ahead and get in your car and you start driving anyways. So you're driving down the road, you get to the first intersection. There are also no stoplights, and there are other cars on the road. So there are no stoplights. You're like, oh no, you make it through the intersection okay, and keep driving and realize there are also no road signs at all, like nothing that labels the streets or anything. So you're trying to figure out how you get from point A to point B successfully. That's what it's like when your team members or your peers aren't receiving feedback. They don't know not only when they're doing something incorrectly, but they also don't know when they're making a correct decision or doing something correctly. So that's just an example to show you how important feedback is, um, and giving people a guide to be successful. We do also have some guidelines for delivering feedback. The first one is positive in intent. Um, and this one is really big. So if you're going into a feedback conversation with the intent to hurt someone, you're not trying to give them feedback, you're trying to hurt them. So maybe take a step back, recalibrate, and decide if that's actually a conversation you want to have. And harsh feedback does not help people improve. You need to be very kind and considerate with your feedback, and also be specific about examples. And then second is radical candor, and that is basically care personally and challenge directly. So get to know your team members and your peers on a little bit more personal level so you can work with them better. There's a really, really nice video on the guidance on feedback page about radical candor. So I would encourage you to go watch it. It's like 20 minutes, but it gives some good examples of using it, and just like some tips on it as well. And then also make it a frequent event and do it in real time. So don't wait until performance reviews. I know right now we're at the 360 review, so it's a good time to give some feedback. But if something happened, 2 months ago or even 2 weeks ago, the ideal situation is that you give them feedback right away. And then maybe you could store some notes and add that to their 360 review when it comes around. But yeah, you don't want to just like spring a bunch of feedback on someone 6 months after something happened. And then avoid using absolutes. So don't say, you always do this, or you never show up to meetings on time. Make sure you're using like concrete examples. So like last Tuesday, I was in 3 meetings with you and you showed up late to all 3 of them. It seems like you don't really care about, it seems like you don't value the meetings or something. So just make it more specific versus you always do this or you never do this. And then feedback should be both positive and constructive. We encourage a 4-to-1 ratio of positive to constructive feedback. So make sure you're letting people know when they're doing a great job, when you're appreciating their work, and things like that. And then use the situation behavior impact model, or SBI model. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a couple slides, so I won't go into it too in depth right now. And then allow the feedback receiver to or time to reflect on the feedback. So some people, like, their immediate response to feedback is to be a little bit angry. So maybe a conversation right away about the action plan to implement the feedback is not the perfect scenario. And then you'll have people that want to think about it before they have a conversation on how they're going to implement the feedback. So just give people a little bit of time to think about it. It doesn't have to, the whole discussion doesn't have to happen right up front. And then feedback is really a gift, and there are a few different types of feedback. So positive feedback and constructive. Within positive, there's recognition and appreciative. And then within constructive, there's developmental. And then how do you give feedback? Again, there's a couple ways here. So formal, informal, and documented. And you don't have to just do necessarily one of these. maybe you give someone feedback more formally in a one-on-one, and then you also um, put it in their culture amp 360 review, or you put it in the thanks Slack channel so that more people can know what a great job your um, coworker did. So it doesn't have to just be one, but there are different options that you can use. And then as far as when you should give feedback, anytime is the right time, but ideally in real time. So right after the client call, give someone feedback on how their presentation was, or at your next one-on-one, just so you're not waiting and saving it up until the performance review. So a little bit more about the SBI model, which is what we encourage you to use when delivering feedback. So it stands for situation, behavior, and impact. So situation is the anchor, time, and place. So going off the other example of being late to meetings. So last Tuesday, I had 3 meetings with you. The behavior, which is the observable action, is I noticed you were late to all 3 meetings. And then the impact is what you felt, thought, or experienced. It seemed like other people were frustrated that you were late to the meetings as well, things like that. So it's a little more specific about the date and time and what exactly happened and how you saw the impact of what happened. So we have a few examples of one is positive and the next one will be constructive. So we'll go through these quickly and then we'll go into breakout groups and you can use this model with your group. So for the positive feedback, I'll just read like what the feedback is that you would give someone. So at the meeting earlier, I noticed you balanced sharing information and asking open-ended questions to engage the listeners. The attendees told me they felt clearly understood and that our product is well positioned. So you can see how that aligns really nicely with the SBI model. An example of feedback that might be nice to hear, but is not necessarily going to help you improve is, I really liked your presentation. Good job. It feels good to hear, but you're like, what did I do right? What can I keep doing? So you can see how you can apply it to positive feedback as well. And then for more constructive feedback, it would be when you presented your proposal to the leadership group, I noticed you did all the talking up front and made us wait to ask questions until the end. I believe you lost some of the attendees somewhere because a few of them appeared to be frustrated. So this, again, really aligns nicely to the SBI model and identifying the specific anchor time and how that impacted it. So with that, we will go into breakout groups. You'll be in your groups for about 15 minutes. And as a group, you can pick whichever scenario you want to work on. There will be 3 to choose from. Make sure to nominate someone in your group to report back during the debrief because we'll ask for input on the 3 scenarios so we can discuss them. You can use the agenda to take notes. There should be outlined group 1 through 6. If there are more than 6 groups, just add some more. It also might be helpful to put your names by the group number because in our last session, some people forgot what group they were in. And then talk about how you would deliver feedback using the SBI model. You'll have 15 minutes, and if you get done with the first scenario you start on, go ahead and work through the others if you have time. And we'll come back to debrief. I won't read all the scenarios to you, but just for a heads up, scenario 1 is a manager giving feedback to a direct report. Scenario 2 is peer-to-peer, and scenario 3 is a direct report giving feedback to their manager. I will go ahead and put you in the groups now, and you can start working on those. Okay, I think we have everyone back now. I hope you had some great conversations. I apologize, I'm gonna leave my video off just in case my internet gets a little spotty again. We are going to go into the debrief, so we'll have about 15 minutes for this. So we'll start with the first scenario. If anyone wants to just talk about what their group discussed, or the SBI model that you put together to deliver the feedback.
Yeah, this is Hayden. I think we'll go if you don't mind,
That'd be great.
because we have this scenario. And Cynthia, Madeline, and Kyle, let me know if I botch any of this up. But the scenario was pretty straightforward, but we didn't want to we tried to just time box it by saying, hey, thanks for attending this extra one-on-one. In the last month I've noticed a couple of things. We just left it at that because there wasn't one specific event. We just time bound it to about the last month. That was the situation. And then when we described the behavior, we said, hey, we noticed that you missed some meetings. And I also noticed that negotiations with XYZ Inc. have stalled out. And that's on top of your numbers not looking so great this year. And we put a note in this section just for the way that we would convey this is to show some kind of benefit of the doubt, to give them a chance to provide a good reason, or we didn't want to sort of come in too confrontational. Ladies, do you want to add any more color on that one, on the behavior?
Yeah, I think part of the discussion that came up was, do you give a pause at once you've addressed situation and behavior to allow the team member to demonstrate their level of awareness for the things that you've observed or lack of awareness before you go into the impact, because it might adjust what they're impacting and how it's being impacted based on what their self-reflection is.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think it probably depends scenario to scenario. So sometimes it might work to do it all at once, and sometimes it might be helpful to kind of hear what they have to say. So yeah, I think it might be a case-by-case basis. Unless Jessica, you have anything to add for Josh?
No, I think it's definitely a case-by-case basis. I think allowing the receiver just to feel the feedback and acknowledge it and own it, I think that's a really good, just to pause there is a really good strategy to implement. And even after you give the feedback, allowing that individual to simmer on it for 24 to 48 hours, revisit, a little bit a day or two later, so that they can reflect on it themselves. I know when I've been given feedback that's really constructive, I just need to process it for a little bit of time.
I'd say that Jessica may have stepped away, or back now. Jessica, you had some.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a 7-year-old who needed me.
You had some really great things to share during our session about kind of context setting and empathy, which is what Jacie was asking about. If you wanted to share some of that kind of with the group.
Well, we were at the scenario with the team member to the manager. And my first reaction was, if I'm having these regular one-on-one with managers and all of a sudden that changed, something must be going on. And so I would have approached my managers, hey, we've always had a really great relationship, but our one-on-ones have been really regular. But lately I noticed they're either being canceled or being moved. Is there something going on? Is there anything I could help with? Because there may be something where the manager's like, you know what, I'm dealing, like me, I have a 7-year-old whose iPad just did not work. And that's the world's worst problem. And I'm trying to homeschool, and it could be, hey, I'm just really struggling right now balancing my work and my home life. So you know what, for the next couple of months until we could get back to school, if you can work with me, they may change, they may drop last moment, but you could always reach out to me, at any point. But hey, there isn't an issue, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. It's just been, I've been, really struggling with mom and whole work-life balance. So I think I would approach it with we've had a great, is there something else? Because more than likely, there is something else happening. Anything, William, that you would add to that?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great that it was almost like a pre-step, or rather than just, I think the one thing you said that really stuck with me was If we're just doing SBI mechanically, it's all about me. Like here's the situation, here's behavior I noticed out of you, here's the impact on me. But just having that check-in step to say like, here's the situation and the behavior that I've noticed. And before I launch into the impact, I might just check in and say, is everything going all right in your world? And that kind of empathy really struck me as because in this case with the manager there was, or I think we've all had a lot of COVID and other life event disruptions. So.
Yeah, thanks for the backup, William. That's exactly what we were thinking.
Awesome. Perfect. So we hit a little bit on scenario 2 or scenario 3 in that one as well. Does anyone want to talk about scenario 2 and what their group discussed?
Sure, I can jump in. So the first thing we talked about was, I guess can be summarized as kind of knowing your team member and I guess understanding the differences, because there could be many in the way they communicate, right? It could be a seniority thing, it could be a cultural difference, it could be, you know, work experience. The example we used was the person could be coming from a company where challenge culture is adopted and it's okay to interrupt and they don't really think anything of it. But the person being interrupted might be from a culture where that is seen as disrespectful or just, you know, just the way they believe. So making sure you understand both sides and talking it out when you're in that scenario. And then we actually had to kind of play it out in real life because I'm not trying to pick on Anna, but I had to interrupt her because we were going down the wrong path with our scenario. And I said, Anna, actually, this is what we need to do, and clarified. And we kind of walked through. We did a real life role play on that one actually, and it worked out well. She sounds bad. She appreciated my feedback that I interrupted her and tried to get us back on the same path. So, but yeah, we talked about the many different things that could be affecting both the person being interrupted and the interrupter, and how that could affect the other person, and making sure that you're very empathetic when you're understanding, having that follow-up communication about, hey, I felt this when you interrupted me, and letting the interrupter give a chance to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. You know, I'm just going by the handbook, as Tiffany called out, you know, we encourage interruptions if you are off topic, which is what happened in our scenario. So making sure both sides are empathetic and understanding where the intent was. And I can't remember how we put it in the handbook, but having short toes and making sure that no malice was intended.
Awesome. Those are
We
really great. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead.
Jacie. Look at me interrupting.
Yeah, Dan.
I expect a one-on-one call. Yeah, our group went through this as well, and the first angle we took was a positive one, actually giving positive feedback to the person for acknowledging that they had cut them off and saying thank you for doing so. But our group's sort of initial reaction was, does this even seem like an issue? Just if someone interrupts you and then immediately apologizes, we will. It seemed like most of the people in the group were like, why would this even be an issue? So we kind of had to pretend like it was a big deal and try and figure out why it might be a big deal. You know, just based on the scenario, it didn't feel like it. So maybe there's a pattern of interruption, maybe there's something else going on, and we walked through a couple of those. And also the other scenario was, you know, getting that feedback and then having further feedback from team, I don't remember what we're calling them, the second person saying, well, you talk too long. You're never succinct. Like I seem to struggle with that sometimes. So providing that feedback, and this could be an avenue for doing that as well. Like, hey, I didn't appreciate the interruption, or hey, I really appreciate you correcting yourself. And then, hey, you kind of talk too much. No one gets a word in edgewise, you know? So just looking at this from different angles and trying to build a scenario where we thought one-on-one, like direct feedback would be necessary. Because yeah, again, the group didn't particularly feel like this was a really hardcore situation that would require it. But yeah, did I miss anything, peeps?
Just making use of other channels. So we don't have just Zoom. So sometimes a Slack message could be enough. I think we touched on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too bogged down in the minutia or the medium, but I feel like it's important, at least for us, to appreciate the other options we have available to us outside of scheduling a meeting with somebody that, you know, that might be a little heavy-handed for some of these scenarios.
I had a team member who was shadowing a meeting a few weeks ago, and they brought this story to me. But I thought it was a really good tactic where they had observed someone in the meeting interrupting others quite frequently. And I don't recall who it was, but someone chimed in and said, hey, I think this meeting would be a bit more efficient if we were all more aware of whether or not we were interrupting others. And I just thought that was a really good approach to support folks who might be getting interrupted that feel they can't speak up.
Agreed. And if you're the facilitator of the meeting, if you see someone get cut off, you can always call out and say, hey, I think Dan had a thought, and then let them follow up on it.
But, and there's the inverse of that side, right? Which is to say that I've often seen people unmute themselves. Someone keeps talking, someone unmutes themselves again, someone keeps talking, or another person talks. And it's worthwhile. It's hard in screen sharing mode because you can't see everyone. But you know, you have an opportunity to help support someone that's looking to make a point there as well.
And you brought up a good point, and it's something that I thought as well. When I first saw this scenario, I was like, is this a big deal? And then I was like, well, you know what? Maybe because it's not to me doesn't mean it's not to anybody else. Well, then I thought about it. Yaritzi she used our example really well. She said that the way that she was made to feel was that someone wasn't listening. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know, I bet you there's a few times in meetings where I've listened or thought I was listening, maybe like 50 to 60%. And someone wants 100, so why am I not giving back 100? And also when I make a response, it's 80% on the same issue. Like it's not exactly there. So when that person was listening, they were like, hey, you're not listening to me. And then I thought about it, and I was like, I've probably done that a few times, and I thought that their reaction was weird. It's probably because I wasn't listening all that way. So I thought this was a pretty interesting way to say like, hey, this is how I feel. And then the way that our scenario went, the other person said, oh, I acknowledge you. So it's a couple of things where I thought like, oh, acknowledging is the main thing that I think we all want in life. And it took me a long time to realize that. So this is actually really helpful.
The power of the SBI or that whole message type model, because I was the interrupter role playing with Naritzi, who I had interrupted in our scenario. And it does look pretty innocuous as it's written up on the slide. But on the other side of it, hearing her describe it and put the emotion behind how she felt when I had interrupted her, I felt guilty and bad, and kind of just took the time to drink that all in and then try to respond completely to her in our role play. It's even something that seems rather mild by comparison could have a large emotional impact on somebody else.
That was a really great discussion. My goal with the scenario was positive feedback for her, to give team member B positive feedback on recognizing they interrupted and turning it back over. But like, I love where this conversation went, and I think it's really important because I think it's also a lot easier to, or a lot more common maybe, to interrupt someone in a remote environment where you can't see, you know, maybe someone, typically people like move before they talk, or, you know, you might not see them mute and unmute, things like that. So that was a really good discussion about that. We don't have that much time left, so I'll go ahead and run through the last few slides quickly. So we just have some closing feedback tips. We've gone through all of this today. We just really want to create a culture of feedback where it's not scary and you can give feedback every day, not just in a performance review. Make sure you're giving positive feedback as well, and use the SBI model. All the information will be outlined on the guidance on feedback page, so you can look at that and reference it in the future if you need it. And then we covered these objectives, the difficulties of feedback, foundations of feedback, and then model a culture of feedback. We do have one more mentee prompt. So that is, what is one takeaway you'll apply when you deliver feedback during this 360 review? and it's an open-ended question. Your name's not attached to it or anything, so you can put whatever you want for your answer.
Where do we put that, Jacie? Did you say put that in the doc?
Oh, in Menti. Sorry.
Oh, Menti. Okay, sorry.
Yep. Awesome. A lot of really great answers about using SBI, giving feedback more in real time, more positive feedback, being empathetic, super important. Yeah, acknowledging the impact of my action and validating the other person. It's awesome. Perfect. Okay, so we will go ahead and go to the Q&A portion. I will stop sharing. There's a Q&A portion of the doc. I think I saw one question in there already. Dan, do you want to verbalize?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, radical candor, and I'll link to the handbook there, is something that can be used as an excuse to be harsh with people. What would be your advice to people in their understanding of utilizing this model?
Yeah, when I watched the video, it's about 20 minutes long. I also was like, oh, this could come off really harsh. I think the biggest part is caring personally. So like getting to know your team on a more personal level. But yeah, I think Dave, you put something in there as well. Do you want to verbalize?
I can verbalize. Like any good leadership or feedback or other consulting model, radical candor is on a 2x2. So you can be high, 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 low, low, high, low, low. I think the description of challenging directly without trying to plug in emotionally and care personally would be what Kim would describe as obnoxious aggression in her book. And so it's real important to look to manage to be attuned to both dimensions and be, as you're challenging directly, which is also really important, making sure that you're validating the person, connecting with them, building them up in a positive way so that that feedback has greater likelihood of landing well and helping them as opposed to breaking them down.
Yeah, I think the main question I had was around, I've worked in a company that's all radical candor and done this a lot. And it still doesn't make people feel empowered to give this type of feedback because that can feel kind of exclusionary in some ways. Because if you're not comfortable with it, because maybe you don't have the fundamentals of trust, it's really hard to feel like you're getting genuine feedback from someone who cares. So that's why I was kind of calling this out, is it can be really difficult.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Thanks for sharing, Dan.
That sparks something, Dan, and something one of my mentors a long time ago shared with me. The heavier the message, the bigger the bridge you need to build to carry that message across. And kind of what you were saying, like even in an environment where culturally it's allowed, if that trust in that relationship isn't there, maybe that's what you need to build first before you can go and give the radical candor feedback.
And this is Jessica. So I also think we need to make sure that people don't confuse radical candor with just being a jerk. We have a spirit of, we throw out transparency, and sometimes I think people just, well, I'm being transparent. There's always, I'm in people ops. I have difficult conversations every day. And there's always a way to have a difficult conversation, even if it's really hard, in a positive, uplifting, kind way. And I think sometimes we just forget that, and it's just, we go kind of for the boom. And it's not taking in consideration that I can say it that way, or are there other better ways to say it? So I think sometimes people just throw things out there. So I would, caution everyone to, yes, you could absolutely give hard feedback. I'm not saying sugarcoat it. I have 2 little puppies, and Dave Gilbert knows that because he sees them all the time. They can't walk very far, but I'll do a little 10 or 15 minute walk, and I talk to myself, and I kind of talk about, okay, as I'm having, people think I'm crazy probably, but I have to hear it because I'm like, ooh, that that didn't sound good. What I thought I would say when I said it, it doesn't sound good. So if you have to have one, I really think you take the time to role play with yourself, even for a few moments, just so you can actually better wordsmith the conversation and make sure it goes okay.
Would agree with that too. Just I guess say how much important it is. I talk to myself a lot, and so sometimes people think the same thing. They're like, "Why?" And they'll hear me like when they come in, like, "Were you talking to yourself?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was going to have a conversation, whether it be with my significant other or like a family member." But it's also helped with work too, because like I realized as my parents got older, you can't talk to them the same way. Like they're different now. Like I guess they're more understanding, but sometimes it's the opposite, and maybe I'm the more understanding. So I have to have these conversations with myself before I talk to them. And I've noticed that there's things I've said. I guess I have like 4 or 5 filters now. So instead of saying what I originally wanted to say, it's 4 or 5 times now. It's been refined, and I guess I get a better reaction from them, just because I'm not operating right on my feelings. Because I think that's a lot. We expect something out of a conversation, but when have you ever received what you expected out of that conversation? So I think the main thing is to go in there and say, like, are you trying to help someone, or are you trying to just like get your feelings out? And I think if you're just getting your feelings out, it hurts. It's not good, I guess, for the both of you. It just hurts one of you. So then you're gonna have another one-on-one. So I guess just talking to yourself really helps refine that message.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for contributing to that. Hayden, do you want to verbalize?
Oh, sure. I was actually just seeing if SBI was in any of our handbook sections. I couldn't find it, so forgive me if it is there. But if it is, or maybe if it's not, we should probably consider injecting some of our values of collaboration in there. I think everyone agreed that injecting a bit of empathy right before we sort of talk about impact is a pretty good idea. I think a lot of us do it naturally anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's on the feedback page. We don't have it on the values page. I can put that in the
Thank you.
agenda. But yeah, that'd be great to add more of that detail. And I think Tao left. Maybe.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries. So this may not have been intended by the example scenarios we use regarding interrupting, but I just wanted to ask to be sure, is this not, interrupting is not a good thing anymore? It is mentioned in number 13 of video calls. I linked to the handbook page there as being something that's encouraged. And I have personally encouraged my team to interrupt so that we have not a monologue like it mentions in the handbook page, but more team interaction. I just want to ask if
Yeah, that's a great point. I do still think interrupting, is something that we encourage here. It was just mainly example for more positive feedback rather than negative, because the person hadn't finished what they were saying and someone else essentially like started talking about a new topic versus interjecting similar information. So yeah, no, it's still okay to interrupt, but I also think interrupting with empathy is important too. Like, don't just start talking over people. Does that make sense?
I think it goes being, let the person have their time, let them finish their sentence. Sometimes we get in situations where someone's midstream and someone just starts just talking over them. So interruption, finish.
If I could share another anecdote, I interrupt all the time, or at least I used to. And we did a training as the product team where the trainer facilitator said, when you're doing customer interviews, don't interrupt at all, never for any reason. And I personally disagreed with the instructor and thought, this is really dumb. This is never going to work because you're going to get off track and it's not going to be effective. But I'll give it a try. This was a couple months ago. And after a couple months of consciously just trying to never interrupt, I have never found myself in a situation where I thought I should have interrupted there. So I'll just share that feedback that I'm a convert where I used to really disagree with that. So just a little bit of feedback there, or a little.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we are a little over time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. I just want to thank you all for attending and for my Wi-Fi. I apologize, but we do have a feedback form on the agenda. It's agenda number 5. So please go ahead and fill that out so that we can improve for next time and go out and use the SBI model. Thanks, everyone.